3 weeks to go now, roughly, until Election Day. So we're going to start trying to pack more than one race into a lot of these videos. So today we're going to try and cover quickly a whole state, the state of Ohio. If you followed the 2008 presidential election, you know that Ohio is a uniquely important state in American politics, kind of a bellwether, very important, very big politically, lots of electoral votes, can swing in either direction, and that is playing out in a lot of these races. Let's start with the governor's race, which is one of the most closely watched governor's races in the country this year. The incumbent is Democrat Ted Strickland. He's a minister. He's a former member of Congress. He left Congress after a long stint of service to become governor in 2006. He's up for re-election. He's had a tough time. The unemployment rate in Ohio is a little higher than the national average. It's about 10.1, 10.2%. And he's running against a formidable opponent, Republican John Kasich. Kasich, some of you may remember, was a high-ranking Republican when they took over the House led by Newt Gingrich back in 1994. Kasich was the chairman of the House Budget Committee at that time. After he left Congress, he went on to a career in Fox News, as so many Republicans do. So he maintained a pretty high profile. And he's a well-known guy, and he's been able to raise a lot of money, as has Strickland. It's a very close race. Right now, Kasich in public polls is 3-4 points ahead. Strickland's people still feel that they're within striking distance and point to other polls that show that it's actually tied, or maybe Strickland is even ahead. Barack Obama is going to Columbus on the 17th, where he's going to have a high-profile fundraiser for Strickland and other Ohio candidates, and a public appearance on the campus of Ohio State. So Strickland Kasich, one of the most hotly contested governor's races in the country. The Senate race, on the other hand, isn't quite so contested. It's an open seat. Retiring Republican incumbent George Voinovich is vacating. The Republican nominee is Rob Portman. Portman was the Bush administration's trade representative, and also before that a member of Congress. The Democratic nominee is Lee Fisher. He is a statewide elected official who won a tough Democratic primary. Some Ohio Democrats think his opponent might have been a slightly tougher general election candidate against Portman, but Fisher won. Fisher, this race started out close, but Fisher hasn't been able to gather much momentum. Portman is not an extremist. He's not a Tea Party guy. He's a conservative, but he's in basically the mainstream of conservatism. He's about 10 or 12 points ahead. So it looks like Portman's going to win this seat, but this would not be a pickup. This would go, of course, from Republican hands to Republican hands. There's a lot of interesting action in Ohio in House of Representatives races. I'm going to choose 4 to focus on in particular, because these 4 all involve Democratic incumbents who won in either 2006 or 2008 when the Democrats swept to power in the House and in the Senate. They're all very close to varying degrees, and they're all going to be bellwethers of some sort come election night. Let's start with the 6th district. That's a largely rural district in the eastern part of Ohio, hugs the border of West Virginia there, as you can see, runs along the Ohio River. The incumbent is Democrat Charlie Wilson. He was elected in 2006. His Republican opponent is Bill Johnson. This is one the Republicans were very much hoping they could take, but Wilson apparently has run a pretty good campaign. He's a little bit ahead right now. It's still very close, but Wilson is considered a slight favorite at this point. Next door to the 6th is the 18th, also eastern Ohio, also a pretty rural district. The incumbent is Democrat Zach Space. He also, like Wilson, was elected in 2006 for the first time. He replaced Bob Ney, a longtime Republican incumbent who was disgraced in the Abramoff scandal, convicted actually. Space holds the seat, but Republicans have had this district pretty high on their hit list. He's running against a state legislator named Bob Gibbs, a very conservative guy. Space is considered to be holding on, and the betting right now seems to be that Space is in good position to win this seat. So that would be interesting. Next up, the 16th district, a little bit north of those two. takes in Canton and some other smaller cities in north central Ohio. The Democratic incumbent is a guy named John Boccieri, elected in 2008. His opponent is Republican Jim Renacci, and it looks like Renacci has the advantage in this district now. Finally, the 15th district has some of downtown Columbus, the upper suburbs, the northern suburbs, which are the wealthier suburbs, and running up into some rural parts. The Democratic incumbent is Mary Jo Kilroy. She ran for the seat in 2006, lost, won it in 2008, so she's a one-termer. Her opponent is a man named Stephen Stivers, also comes from the state legislature. He has the advantage right now over Kilroy. So those are the four really interesting races in Ohio. Right now, they seem to be splitting 2 and 2, which would be a pretty good outcome for the Democrats, quite frankly, although those two races in which the Democrats are slightly favored, particularly the Wilson-Johnson race in the 6th, is pretty close to being a toss-up. And finally, there's a little piece of fun that emerged from Ohio last week, another House race, the 9th District, which is up in Cleveland, West Cleveland, runs west of that along Lake Erie. The incumbent is Democrat Marcy Kaptur. She's been in there since roughly 19 forever. She's going to win. She has basically a 99% chance of re-election, but her Republican opponent has gotten a little bit of attention in the past week. This is a man named Rich Yott, I guess you would pronounce it, I-O-T-T, who had emerged, has been spending some of his recreational hours in recent years participating in a military reenactment group that's not about the Revolutionary War and it's not about the Civil War, as most of these things are, but in fact he was a member of a Waffen-SS military reenactment group, as you can see in this photograph of him. Look, folks, there's no ideological content to this, okay? It's just about people who are interested in military history.